Hi. Welcome to Spoiler Lab. On board of the plane, the blind fortune teller suddenly screams that they can't take off, otherwise everyone will die. But none of the passengers believed her. Today we will recap the 2014 movie Last Flight.
I knew it! I remember it! We can't be on this plane!
The flight attendant named Lola wakes up on board of a plane in cold sweat. Everything feels like a blur. There is no one else but Lola on board. Lola runs around the plane in panic and looks for her colleagues. The cockpit is empty, too. Finally, Lola finds the captain named Charles and sighs in relief. However, within the next second Charles silently opens the emergency exit and jumps out of the airplane. Lola screams and tries to hold on to the seat not to fly out of the plane, but she can't save herself. All of it was just a bad dream. Lola wakes up on a bus that is taking her and her colleagues to the airport. The friends have a nice chat and get ready for the last flight from Taiwan to Singapore. The airlines are planning on closing this flight for unknown reasons. The same plane is taken by a group of friends who are returning home from their vacation. The thing is, the guy named Leslie fully covered the trip, so he could spend time with his constantly busy friends. Leslie pokes fun at his friend Freddie, who has no money to pay for the taxi. Freddie's girlfriend, Celine, also looks at her lover with contempt and pity. All passengers go through the pre-flight screening. One man tries to bring a pocket knife on board, assuring that it isn't even sharpened and that any object could be a weapon really. Ethan and his wife Jasmine argue with the airport worker, holding up the line.
I need to talk to your manager.
A guy named Wallace uses this to his advantage. He attracts the attention of a mute little girl Katie and shows her a trick with a toy. He needs this trick to unnoticeably plant an object in her backpack. When her backpack goes through the X-ray scanner, no one pays attention to the suspicious object, because the airport workers are enchanted by how cute Katie is and get distracted by talking to her. The staff, and then the passengers, board the plane. It is the last flight for the Captain Charles, as he is planning on becoming a racer driver after that. Charles wants to make sure the flight goes perfectly, but he recently broke up with the flight attendant Lola, so now seeing her on board is a bit unpleasant for him. Flight attendants kindly welcome everyone on board and ask them to settle down. There are only 9 passengers on this flight, so the plane is almost empty. The brawlers Ethan and Celine are the only ones in business class. Celine takes a seat next to Freddie and shames him for working all the time and not paying any attention to her. The plane takes off. Charles understands that there is only enough fuel to reach Singapore, but it doesn't bother him, as he doesn't think there will be any trouble. All of a sudden, during takeoff, Katie's blind companion Daisy jumps up from her seat and screams that the airplane needs to land immediately. According to her, they can't fly this plane, or everyone on this plane will die. The flight attendants calm Daisy down. The rest of the passengers try to maintain their composure and ignore the scary prediction. To relieve the tension, Leslie orders cocktails and flirts with the flight attendant named Jessica. Lola enters the cockpit and asks why the plane isn't picking up speed. Charles tries to hide how annoyed he is and asks the girl to leave.
Please go back downstairs. You're working.
The co-pilot scolds Charles and reminds him that Lola will become a pilot herself next year, since Charles has taught her all about it during their relationship. Charles asks his colleague to refrain from commenting. Wallace keeps a close eye on Katie's backpack and wants to retrieve the item he planted at the airport. Suddenly, unnoticeably to everyone, Katie's backpack moves slightly. The flight has been going on for some time, and the economy class passengers start to doze off. Leslie slowly gets up from his seat and walks over to the flight attendant Jessica. After flirting, young people retire to the toilet, passionately tear each other's clothes off and have sex. Jessica says the flight will last 5 hours, so they'll still have time to be naughty. Leslie comes out of the toilet and bumps into Celine. He grabs her hand and leads her away from the toilet. It turns out that Celine has been dating Leslie for 2 months, cheating on her boyfriend Freddie. Obviously, Celine knows nothing about Leslie's own infidelities. Celine asks to give her a little more time to gather courage and break up with Freddie. Meanwhile, Jessica is in the toilet tidying herself up. Suddenly, a mysterious shadow flickers next to her. Soon after, Sudie, Wallace's sister, goes to the toilet. Sudie lets out a piercing scream as she discovers Jessica's motionless body. The flight attendant's clothes are torn, and deep bloody scratches are visible everywhere. Freddie is interested in forensic science and offers to investigate it. After all, when the initial shock passes, the passengers will start panicking. Some people think that the culprit of the crime is Leslie, since he was the last one to go to the toilet. Charles arrives. He asks passengers to remain calm. When the plane lands, the Singapore police will board the plane. He does not allow Freddie to conduct an investigation, so he wouldn't destroy any evidence. But, when Charles leaves, Lola takes the initiative and allows Freddie to examine the lifeless body of the flight attendant. The guy says that Jessica's body has scratches from animal claws. Freddie also discovers a deep bite wound on the girl's neck, which was the reason for her death. Lola and Freddie go to the cockpit. Freddie reports that the bites and scratches on the body are toxic and it was some kind of mammal that has left them. But there are no mammals on Earth with such a large supply of poison. This story is overheard by Ethan. He immediately goes to the cabin, tells about what he heard and terrifies other passengers. Charles tries to calm everyone down. Suddenly, the plane starts having problems with electricity. Charles sends the co-pilot to the technical compartment to fix the problem. He doesn't come back for a long time. Then Lola and Freddie also go down there. They discover the pilot's body with the same wounds as Jessica's. Charles immediately reports all this information to the dispatcher. The dispatcher replies that similar cases have happened in the past. People were attacked by strange poisonous animals on a tropical island. The dispatcher says that the medical team will wait for the plane in Singapore. The plane just needs to make it there. Freddie believes that it is necessary to tell the passengers about everything. But Charles still wants his last flight to be as calm as possible, so he doesn't let him escalate the panic. Meanwhile, Ethan goes to the toilet. His wife Jasmine drinks a strong sedative and takes a nap. Something approaches her, making growling sounds, but the woman does not know that she is in danger. In the economy class cabin, Freddie gathers his courage and decides to tell Celine something. He understands that now is not the best time, but there was no better opportunity. Freddie reveals that he bought them a beautiful 4-bedroom apartment in the very center of Shanghai. He promised Celine earlier that he would do it, but he had to work hard to save money for the apartment. That's why he spent little time with her. Celine hugs the guy and thanks him. She is sympathetic towards Freddie and no longer wants to break up with him. Screaming, Jasmine rolls down the stairs from the upper cabin. She is alive, but her whole body is covered in scratches. As everyone crowds around Jasmine, Wallace runs back to the cabin and gets Katie's backpack in search of his package. The package is not there. Wallace breaks down and yells at Katie. Lola and Sati come running towards his screams. The guy is no longer himself. He confesses that he found something on the island and brought it on board. These were the remains of an animal, the mummy of a cat. The guy made sure that the animal was dead. He even embalmed the cat, so there is no way it could escape. But Ethan doesn't care about those details. He hears Wallace's confession and beats the guy up, blaming him for all the troubles.
What'd you bring on this plane, dead man?
Information comes in that Jasmine needs to drink plenty of water to survive. Ethan immediately leaves Wallace and starts to save his wife. Leslie breaks down and hits Wallace as well. Freddie separates them. He understands that Wallace did not want anyone to die, and that the poisonous monster is to blame for everything. Leslie immediately turns his anger on Freddie. He gloatingly confesses that he is secretly dating Celine. The girl has nothing to say. Wallace gets back on his feet and admits his guilt. He goes to the business class cabin alone and starts hunting the monster. Soon everyone hears his scream. Sati can't stand it and runs after her brother. The monster attacks the girl and injures her. Wallace comes to his senses. The monster did not touch him, only frightened him. Wallace carries his wounded sister down. Lola informs Charles of the new victims. In turn, Charles says that the weather has become worse, and the autopilot has turned off. Now he can't leave the steering wheel. He decides to close the door to the cockpit so that the monster does not get to him, because otherwise there will be no one to fly the plane. Now Lola is in charge of the cabin. Charles trusts her. There is still 1 hour and 15 minutes left before landing, and the monster is getting stronger. Lola asks everyone to stay together, so no one would face the monster alone. However, Freddie locks himself in the toilet, washes his face and tries to accept that his lover cheated on him with his friend. Celine is waiting for him outside the door. She assures Freddie that she was going to tell him everything and asks for his forgiveness. The guy realizes that now is not the time to sort things out. He believes that the most important thing right now is to survive. The lightning flashes in the sky around the plane. Charles tries to maneuver between the strikes, which causes the plane to tilt, and the passengers aren't able to stay in their seats. Sati's state gets even worse. At the same time, Leslie hears that the monster is getting closer. He forces blind Daisy to let out a scream, so that the monster would attack her. And so it happens, Daisy's lifeless body remains lying in the seat. Lola runs to her and finds Katie's drawings next to the seat. In these pictures, the girl predicts the fate of each passenger. Up until this moment, everything matches the reality. Meanwhile, Celine breaks up with Leslie for good. The girl accuses him of being a selfish coward, and calls Freddie a real man. Charles reports over the speaker that the dispatchers have inquired about the monster. These animals were considered extinct decades ago, but they started attacking people again last October. That is why they decided to cancel all flights to the island. These animals do well in the cold, so Charles asks everyone to go up to the well-heated business class cabin and barricade themselves there. Sati refuses to go upstairs and Wallace decides to stay with her. The brother and sister lock themselves in the toilet. Wallace asks his sister for forgiveness. He assures that he filled the monster with plaster and simply wanted a souvenir. Sati gets it and doesn't blame her brother. She just regrets the mistakes of the past and feels lonely. Wallace promises that he will always be there, hugs his sister and sings a soothing song. The monster hears the music and bursts into the toilet. At the last moment, Wallace manages to take his sister outside the toilet. Suddy cries and asks to be let in the business class cabin, but Leslie does not want to let anyone in. Then Freddy punches him in the face and accuses him of being a coward. Suddy is allowed into the cabin, followed by wounded Wallace crawling in. All injured passengers need water, but Ethan goes berserk and wants no one else but his wife to get the water. He breaks the handle off the suitcase and offers to fight him for water. No one dares to fight him. Then Ethan turns to the captain. He wants Charles to leave the cockpit and share the fate of the passengers. The captain does not respond to any ultimatums. Wallace demands that Ethan give water to his sister. At this time, the plane shakes again, and Wallace falls on the floor. Having found the courage, he jumps up and pounces on Ethan. The enraged opponent pushes the sharp handle of the suitcase into Wallace's stomach. The guy bleeds out and falls to the floor. Suddy rushes to him. To calm the attacker down a little, Celine lies that there is an antidote for the monster's poison, and it has already been delivered to the Singapore airport. Lola immediately calls her friends to show them Katie's drawings. The girl has already drawn Wallace dead prior. But still, according to Katie's prediction, the plane will land safely. The weather gets even worse. The dispatcher forbids landing in Singapore. A typhoon is already raging there. The plane must change course and fly to Phuket. Hearing this, Ethan gets even more mad. He forces Lola to show where the parachutes are. Threatening with the suitcase handle, he leads everyone to the emergency exit and wants to jump out in Singapore with his wife. Jasmine is sick because she drank too much water, but distraught Ethan doesn't care. Ethan forces Charles to lower the plane to 3,000 meters, otherwise he promises to kill the crew and the passengers. Lola waits for a moment and tries to take the murder weapon from Ethan, but he quickly reacts and hits the flight attendant. Then Freddy and Leslie pounce on him. Ethan used to be in the military, so he fights much more skillfully than the guys. However, Ethan is soon attacked by a monster. Jasmine frantically rushes to his lifeless body. The monster immediately drags both of them into its lair. Everyone else quickly returns to the business class cabin. Here, Lola gets in touch with Charles. He reports that there is little fuel left and that the right wing has been struck by lightning, but he can still operate the aircraft. Charles also regrets breaking up with Lola and admits that he was selfish. The girl gets it and admits that she misses him, too.
Charles, I miss you too.
Soon after, the monster sneaks into the business class cabin. He attacks a flight attendant named Susan. Then, Lola urgently takes the passengers to the cockpit. But the roar of the monster can be heard here, too. Lola, Freddy, and Leslie, who now built up the courage, return to the cabin to finish the monster off or at least divert its attention to themselves. They arm themselves with improvised weapons and try to determine the location of the monster by sound. They soon succeed. Lola turns on a quiet melody, since the music attracts the monster better. An angry black cat comes out from behind the curtain. It hisses, rushes around the cabin and jumps very high. Friends try to kill it, but the animal only gets angrier and turns into a monster. The cat grows in size, it grows long claws and fangs, and its eyes turn red. The monster is preparing to attack Lola. But Leslie bravely runs forward and tries to pounce on the cat. But the monster turns out to be faster, and brutally attacks Leslie. On his deathbed, Leslie asks Freddy for forgiveness and says that he is not a coward. After that, the cat tries to break into the cockpit. Charles secures the steering wheel with a seat belt and abruptly opens the door hoping to crush the monster with it. But the cat does not give up. It scratches Charles's chest through the metal and then escapes. Losing strength, the captain returns to his chair and prepares for landing. Lola and Freddy continue their hunt for the cat. Charles wants Lola to take his place at the wheel, so he goes to search for her. Lola attracts a cat with a music toy. Right then, Charles runs up to his friends. He puts on a parachute and stands near the emergency exit. Then, Charles abruptly opens the door, jumps out of the plane, and strong airflow carries the cat out of the cabin. However, the cat manages to cling to Charles's leg. Lola and Freddy try to pull the cable that Charles is holding on to back inside, but the cat refuses to let go of the man's leg, so he decides to unfasten the cable and crash together with the cat. At last, the monster is sucked into the plane's engine, and Charles falls down. Lola tearfully closes the emergency exit door and runs to the cockpit. She can already see the city lights below. She gets behind the wheel and does what Charles taught her. But the hardships continue. One engine goes out of order, and the wing has a crack. As soon as the plane lands, the wing falls off. The chassis also breaks. But in spite of all this, brave Lola manages to land the plane safely. She reports Charles' death to the dispatcher and cries in sorrow. At the airport, all the wounded passengers received medical care. Suddenly, a worker with a radio runs up to Lola. Charles contacts her. His parachute opened, and he managed to survive. Lola is filled with happiness. Young people want to start a relationship anew. Suddenly, Katie's backpack moves and a black cat crawls out of it. After that, we see how some guy and a girl travel around Taiwan and climb into a cave. The guy's phone rings. The music awakens the monsters. In the depths of the cave, many red eyes start to glow.